Wherever you are on your road to retirement, we're here to help you stay on course. Welcome to Mason Street Retirement Insights, the show dedicated to helping you plan your financial future.
What is your biggest concern? People are very focused on the amount of money that they have saved, but it's really about the income that we generate. Income is what's going to drive lifestyle. And so the income strategies that we utilize are what's key.
And now, here's your host, Sean Mason.
And my name is Casey, here with Sean, asking for his ideas on things that you can be working on as you get closer to your retirement. Sean and his team at Mason Street Wealth Management are here to help you figure out a plan so that you can live that life that you want to live in your retirement. Sean, happy Saturday. How we doing?
We're doing so good. I love this time of the year. Really excited because the ski resorts are going to start opening up as soon as we get some more snow. So looking forward to that. And, just loving the Christmas atmosphere. We just moved to a new neighborhood in the last few months, and I was kind of concerned about the other homes. They hadn't gotten Christmas lights up, but now they've started to come through. So
Sean's going to be knocking on doors saying, "Get to it, people."
That's what we're going to do. We've got to get to it.
Are you president of HOA? I feel like you are.
No, I'm actually not, and I'd never do that, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
I can't be under that kind of a thumb.
Galvanize the people to get their Christmas decorations out, get them down on time. That's the bigger one for me.
Yeah.
I still have people in my neighborhood with their Halloween that has not come down yet.
That's awesome.
And one guy turned his Nightmare Before Christmas Jack Skellington just into Christmas Jack Skellington. So I guess it kind of works because it's from Nightmare Before Christmas, but he just kind of has let him take a loop. He'll be springtime Jack Skellington, I guess, in the new year.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that maybe we should just have a neighborhood Christmas party, and that'll get people in the mood early.
There you go. I like it. Good ideas. All right, let's work on that, Sean. In the meantime, you and I, we've got a lot to chat about today. We're going to talk about your strategy when it comes to those required minimum distributions. Plus, we'll talk about the possibility of Social Security cuts and what that could mean for your retirement plan. I'm excited to get Sean's take on it all today. But first, as you're listening today, if you want to start the conversation, we are here for you. You can give us a call at 559-847-0039. And Sean has set aside 5 spots on his calendar exclusively for our radio listeners for a complimentary retirement planning assessment. And this can be just a phone call, just a Zoom meeting to start you out, very low pressure, just you and Sean sharing some ideas. You can ask him your questions. You can talk to him about what you're concerned about, and then he can explain how he and his team may be able to help. 559-847-0039 is that number for you again. Sean's local. His office is right here in Fresno, and he's ready to start that conversation with you. You can also find us online anytime if that works better for you. We're at Mason Street retirementinsights.com. You'll just click that Contact Us tab, fill out your information, and we'll have one of our Mason Street teammates reach out directly to you. That's 559-847-0039 or Mason Street retirementinsights.com. All right, Sean, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. All right, we're fully into December, like we were just saying, and 'tis the season for RMDs, our required minimum distributions. Uncle Sam says beginning at age 73, you cannot defer these taxes any longer. You have to dip into your 401k or your traditional IRA, and many take just the minimum the government is asking, but I wanted to think about it the other way. If you need more to live on, should you take the required amount and a little extra? Should you take more to bring your 401k balance down so that the RMD will be lower in years to come? Sean, talk to us about your thoughts here. What do most people do? What are you seeing?
Yeah, Casey, so no matter what your age, because often people think that the RMD factor is irrelevant to them if they're younger than 70, and that's a big mistake. The earlier you plan for this, the better off you'll be for sure. But it is RMD season. It's the season because the RMD deadline is December 31st, and the penalty is heavy if you miss it. RMDs, or required minimum distributions, are imposed by the IRS, who you signed up to be your partner in funding your tax-deferred plan, 401k, your 403b, IRA. But you signed up for this years ago. You contributed a portion of your income into this account and didn't pay taxes on it, which means you contributed the IRS's money into that account as well. And eventually, they'll want their share. And the way they get it is by requiring you to withdraw from those accounts and pay taxes. And for some individuals, this won't be an issue. And for others, it can have a detrimental effect on their financial well-being, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars in unnecessary taxes.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the scary part, right? Because I feel like you need to know how your RMDs are going to affect you. This isn't something that you want to let be a surprise when you get there, something that you just figure out once you're crossing that bridge, right, Sean?
Yeah, it's essential to know the impact RMDs will have on your individual situation, because for most people, these required minimum distributions will cause a chain reaction of taxes. So first, right out of the gate, the distribution itself is taxable. And then second, that distribution increases income, which can increase taxes on Social Security, which then again increases income on the tax return. And then third, this increased income can increase Medicare premiums, costing additional resources. And then fourth, when your spouse passes, you'll then pay what we call the widow's tax, meaning you'll then most likely file as single, watching that tax bill skyrocket. And last but not least, your beneficiaries will inherit the RMD, which usually causes even higher taxes on your hard-earned money. RMDs are one of those elements that absolutely require comprehensive planning.
Yes, because clearly there are a lot of moving parts. I mean, you just explained that crazy chain reaction there. There are a lot of factors to consider here. So what do you recommend, Sean? If people aren't sure what their RMD situation is, what can people do about it?
Yeah, there's a lot of different strategies, but what kind of makes it complicated is each situation is so unique. So, planning and testing strategies, because this is a long-term taxation. So understanding how these different strategies might work based on your own situation is going to be key, because it's all about tax bracket management. A good thing to ask yourself is, what is more important to you? Taxes that you pay in the current year or taxes that you pay over a lifetime? And for most of us, the taxes we pay over a lifetime is what's going to be most important. And there's different strategies that are going to work for different scenarios. You might find that a higher distribution than the required minimum distribution is the way to go. Roth conversions, they can have a significant effect on taxation throughout your lifetime, but they don't work for everybody. So you've got to make sure and test and understand what it is that you're looking to accomplish. A lot of times, life insurance conversion. So that's similar to a Roth conversion, but instead of taking the money from the IRA and putting into a Roth account, we're actually taking the money from the IRA and putting into a life insurance policy. We're typically going to do that for legacy planning, so that when we pass our assets to those that we care about, the taxation is reduced significantly. But I'll tell you, all of these strategies, they take that testing, they take planning. These are advanced concepts. So I want to invite our listeners to come into our office for a retirement planning assessment, because we're going to help you figure out how what you're doing today will affect you in the future and what you can do to improve it. And for our first 5 callers, we're going to do this with no cost. So I encourage you to give us a call right now at 559-847-0039. Again, that number is 559-847-0039. Our team will find a convenient time for you to come into the office or meet by Zoom, whichever works best for you.
We have opened up those 5 spots on the calendar just for our radio listeners today. So give us a call right now to set up a time for your complimentary retirement planning assessment with Sean. Remember, like he said, this is a no fee, no obligation initial step in the planning process. You can connect with Sean on Zoom or in person, whatever you prefer. You can talk to him about your specific situation. You can ask him your questions. So again, that number, it's 559-847-0039. We want to show you what Mason Street Wealth Management can do for you and how you can keep more of your hard-earned money out of Uncle Sam's pocket. So let's put a time on the calendar for your initial conversation with Sean. 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll just tap that contact tab, fill out your info, and we will have a Mason Street teammate reach out directly to you. Now, Sean, I feel like delaying retirement is a really hot topic right now. I feel like we've actually been talking about it on the show a lot lately. And if you're about 10 years away from when you think you'll retire, you might be looking closely at how much you've saved so far. And if you're not happy, like many aren't, Yahoo Finance's Carrie Hannon says plan for ways to bring in more income. And one option is to work longer. Let's hear what she had to say.
I'm not saying pedal to the metal. It doesn't have to be. People who retire at 65, my goodness, you could have 2+ or 3 decades in retirement. So this is something to consider as an ongoing way to bring in some income as you approach, kind of tip your toes into retirement full time, right? So a lot of people may inch into this. They may work part-time, consulting. There's lots of ways to slice and dice it. But the point is, start thinking 5 years in advance about what that might be.
So that sounds good in theory, Sean, but I wanted to chat about what happens when that decision isn't up to them. How do you help your clients prepare a plan B for an unexpected early retirement? What's that process like?
Yeah, it does sound good. And so families come into my office, and when I ask them what their concerns are, they'll often say, I don't know what I don't know, meaning they understand how important it is to get this right, because when you give up the paycheck, there's no safety nets. And they don't want to find themselves in a situation they didn't think of and could have planned for. This is one of those areas most people don't think about. There's an organization called the Employee Benefit Research Institute. They do a lot of great work that's valuable to us for planning purposes. But each year they conduct a study, and not each year, every few years they conduct a study, and they poll 60-year-olds. And they ask them if they plan to retire before or after age 65, and the results are very consistent. 2/3 say after 65. And then they poll the same people at 67, and again, the results are very consistent. It ends up that 2/3 retired before 65. And there's many reasons why. I'd like to say they come to see me, and through comprehensive planning, they figured out that they had the resources to make that decision on their own terms. And that happens often.
Yeah, that's what we love to see, right? That's what we want to happen. But as you and I both know, Sean, that's unfortunately usually not the case, right?
Yeah, and as you said, usually it's circumstances out of their control, health issues, either with themselves or sometimes family members. Often the employer management team changes, making it unbearable for the employee. We see that a lot. Or sometimes the company just wants to replace the old guard with the new guard and pay them less. I've found through the 20+ years of working with families going through these situations, the fear of the unknown sets in, and it's crushing to the soul, and that's for good reason. They thought they had their retirement figured out, and now it's completely derailed. And when that happens 2 or 3 years earlier than planned, it can have a significant effect on their lifestyle in retirement. This is one of those reasons why you hear me say over and over, those families who have comprehensive financial plan in place right now will be so much better off. It can eliminate that fear of the unknown. Knowing consequences of the many hurdles that can hinder retirement lifestyle allows us to intentionally plan for them and mitigate their effects.
When retirement happens 2 or 3 years earlier than planned, that moment can feel so overwhelming for people. And there's so many emotions and decisions that are coming at you all at once. So let's kind of walk listeners through this, Sean. When you sit down with a client who's just found out they have to retire earlier than they planned, what's your process? Where do you begin? Do you start with their cash flow? Do you start with insurance, Social Security? What is step one when this happens to a client?
Well, no matter what the situation, we've got to figure out, what's important to them, who they are, what they're trying to accomplish, and what their concerns are. And then we got to start to plan from there. If a family comes in and they are all of a sudden in the situation to where they have to retire earlier, typically they don't have the resources that they were hoping for, and we're going to have a limited lifestyle. We've got to take into consideration their risk tolerance, the longevity, what we're expecting. So there's a lot of different elements that we have to take into consideration, but stress testing. What happens in certain situations, we got to make sure that we understand that what types of hurdles, what types of potholes can come, plan for those so that they don't find themselves in another unfortunate position.
Well, and just as important, what are some of the first things you would advise them not to do in those first 72 hours that they find this out? Because, sometimes people act on impulse and they might make a crazy big decision that then they can't take back. So what would you tell one of your clients not to do? What kind of hasty decisions would you say? Hey, take a beat, take a breath. Let's not act crazy.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because if I'm already working with them, they already know not to have any emotional decision making.
Okay.
But for people that aren't working with me already, you cannot panic, and you can't make decisions based out of emotion. So you've got to think through it. I always suggest get some professional consult. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It doesn't mean that you don't have it together. It just means that you're trying to improve your situation.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to be caught off guard. It all starts with having that plan set in place, and putting that plan in place all starts with a phone call. 559-847-0039 is the number that you're dialing right now. We've got a teammate standing by off the air, ready to answer your call. Let's set a time on the calendar for your complimentary retirement planning assessment with you and Sean. This is a no fee, no obligation first step in the planning process. You guys can connect on Zoom or in person, whatever you prefer. Sean can make it happen. 559-847-0039 is that number to dial. It's just a space for you to ask some questions, explain to Sean what you are worried about, and then he can share with you his ideas on ways that he and the team might be able to help. You can also always go to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com to get started. You can click on the Contact Us tab and fill out your info for us, and we'll have one of our Mason Street teammates reach out directly to you. Or what's easier, I think, is just giving us a call right now. Let's set that time on the calendar. 559-847-0039. 559-847-0039. All right, Sean, I mean, ready or not, we were talking about we are fully into December at the top of the show. And with that, holiday shopping season is here. Do you have it all done? Where are we at?
You know what? I always say every year, I'm not waiting until the last minute. And here I am, still haven't done it. I got to go this week. I got to go this weekend.
Time left. Well,
yeah. And it's not even right, because I really only have one person to buy for. She buys for everybody else. Shouldn't I be better at this?
You have it pretty easy, my friend.
Don't I?
You do. All right. Well, listen, if you need some ideas every year, Oprah releases her list, her favorite things gift guide that she does. And it usually includes a lot of affordable stuff, but then also some luxury items, things that might make you question whether you really need them. Like this year, there's a $2,000 espresso machine on there. There's also, this one intrigued me, a $60 pair of anti-fog reading glasses for the shower. Now, I'm a big reader, Sean, but I don't know that I need to be able to read my next chapter while I'm in the shower. Or maybe it'd be nice. Maybe these are just for reading the shampoo bottle if you're reading the instructions every time. I don't know, but my point to all this being, Sean, looking at this kind of list from a retirement perspective, how do you figure out what's a must-have in someone's retirement plan versus something that's just maybe nice to have for your clients? How do you work through that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the anti-fog glasses in the shower, that's kind of concerning, but we entertain a lot. Yeah, right. And, we entertain a lot at the office. By the way, we have a full menu of beverages to choose from, but we also entertain at home. And Casey, I'm up for the $2,000 espresso machine if it can make those foam designs on top.
Oh, yes. You want to make some latte art.
Right. And is there an espresso machine that does that?
I think so. You can put a little heart on there for Michelle. Get her that for Christmas. I think our job's done here.
It's done. Should I just order it, or do I really need to go out and buy it?
No, I just sit at home, one click, it'll show up at your door. Doesn't get easier than that. Just going to cost you $2,000 plus shipping.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it done. I'm ready to go. But this is a discussion of income planning, and it's probably the most important element of a financial retirement plan. Planning for needs versus wants is completely different. And in our comprehensive planning process, we break it down into 3 categories. So we talk about necessities, lifestyle, and bucket list. And usually the most difficult aspect for a family is determining which expenses go where. And this can get really involved.
Yeah, because those definitions are different for everyone, right? So how do you help somebody figure that out? Because it absolutely is going to vary from client to client. It's not every single client wants the exact same things out of their retirement, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like I was meeting with Ben and Martha last week, and they had brought their expenses in. And in this necessities category was a family trip to Washington, D.C. and other parts of the East Coast. But they have 3 children and 6 grandkids. And Martha said it's as important as having the car to expose them to the history of their country. And I just found that profound, and I loved hearing that. Yeah, but needs and wants are different for everyone. And when we get into the funding of each of those categories, often we end up moving expenses from one category to another. But most of us have those core expenses that are necessities: food, utilities, healthcare. And then the lifestyle category: golf, weekend trips, the coast, dining out, taking grandkids to the fair, they'll vary. But the bucket list discussion gets really fun. The big annual trips, vacation homes, RVs. We designed a plan for Bob and Jill a couple years ago. They had contributed to their daughter's college fund ever since she was born. And she ended up getting a full scholarship to Stanford. This is a great story, by the way.
Look at her go. Good
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we took the college fund, we included in their necessities category a portion of the college fund designated for a house down payment for the daughter. And then the rest went to the bucket list for a new boat. And I just heard from her a couple weeks ago. They brought it last month and named it College Fund. How do you love that?
That's brilliant.
Isn't it? Casey,
Yes.
It's my favorite part of what I do.
I mean, College Fund. That may be the most perfect name for a boat that I've ever heard. I love that story, Sean. And I mean, this just really shows how personal these categories can be because, I mean, the one family, a necessity was that trip to look at our nation's history. You know, for another, it could be that down payment, paying for their kids' college, or that down payment for their house. It's different. It was two very different stories for both of these couples that you're working with. And I'm curious about when you're building this plan, Sean, does the way that you invest for necessities look different than how you invest for lifestyle or for bucket list goals? Like, are we talking separate strategies for each bucket? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, it could be. It really boils down to, well, a few different elements. One is risk tolerance, right? And so risk tolerance is really important. But there's guarantees when it comes to income, and then there's probabilities. Some of us kind of rely on what we've heard for years from analysts suggesting that we are financially prudent if we just withdraw 4 or 5% a year out of our accounts that are invested in the market. That's got some risk to it because we're really relying on the market to fund those expenses. And then on the other extreme, a lot of us want guarantees. You know, there are pensions, but then there are also what's called private pensions, to where there's companies out there that will guarantee an income for the rest of our life. It's also about time horizon for each goal. So the way that we invest to fund the goal could be determined by how far out that goal is that we want to reach. But, a lot of times I find that for the necessities, they really want to guarantee the income that's going to pay for those necessities. Sometimes people want to guarantee the lifestyle as well. It's all about who they are and what they're trying to accomplish. I encourage you to give our team a call. Give us a call at 559-847-0039. And if you're one of our first 5 callers, we're going to waive our consultation fee, and we're going to provide you with your own individual financial planning assessment. And we're going to talk about those tax strategies, your estate plan, investment techniques, all those elements you have to be addressing for retirement. Again, that number is 559-847-0039. Give us a call and our team will schedule a good time for you to come into the office or meet by Zoom if that works best for you.
559-847-0039. Remember, there is no obligation. This is just a conversation with you and Sean. You can connect on the phone, Zoom. You can come in person to start out. We'll just take, 15 or so minutes of your time, but you can take the opportunity to connect with somebody who knows the retirement landscape locally. Sean's right here in Fresno, and he is ready to help you answer your big retirement questions. 559-847-0039 is what you need to dial, or head to Mason Street retirementinsights.com. We'll give you a few minutes now to make that call while we take a quick break. Coming up, I'll get Sean's thoughts on some new advice from finance guru Dave Ramsey that has been stirring up quite the debate. That is just ahead here on Mason Street Retirement Insights. We will be right back.
Okay, single room with a queen-size bed, non-smoking, $139.50.
The ad said $99 a night.
That's before the fees.
Fees?
Yeah, the service fee, internet fee, parking fee, ice bucket fee. You might use the luggage cart.
Unexpected fees. We see them all the time. Cell phone bill, cable bill, your internet provider. Have you purchased a car lately? And your retirement accounts. Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management can show you how to identify these fees and design a plan to reduce them. It's all a part of their portfolio X-ray with a deep dive into your 401k and other holdings.
Uh-oh, forgot the free breakfast fee. Oh, and the dome over the pool fee.
More of your money can go toward your retirement, not to some suit on Wall Street. Call the team at Mason Street Wealth Management today for your complimentary portfolio X-ray. 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at masonstreetwealthmanagement.com.
Retirement planning doesn't have to be overwhelming. Sean Mason offers expert insights to help you make confident decisions for your financial future. Subscribe now on Apple, Spotify, or visit masonstreetwealthmanagement.com. Mason Street Wealth Management, setting the foundation for your financial home.
You have found Mason Street Retirement Insights. My name is Casey, here with Sean Mason, president of Mason Street Wealth Management right here in Fresno, asking him for his ideas on things that you can be working on as you get closer to your retirement. As you're listening today, if you want to start the conversation, we are here for you. You can give us a call at 559-847-0039 to set a time on the calendar for that introductory retirement planning assessment with Sean. We've got those 5 spots set aside exclusively for our radio listeners. So go ahead, snag one while we've got them, 559-847-0039, or we're online at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll click on that Contact Us tab, fill out your information, and we will be happy to reach out directly to you. All right, Sean, there are a lot of studies that talk about when people hope to retire versus when they actually do. Here is the Wall Street Journal's Ann Tergeson on Morningstar recently. Take a listen to what she had to say.
And over time, I just started noticing like everybody says they want to retire later than they do on average. People want to retire at, say, 65, 66, but they really are retiring more like 63. And often, people speak to these unexpected things that happen, whether it's layoffs, often it's health issues, whether it's their own health or somebody else's health, and they need to provide caregiving. So I think that's just a very, very persistent, common trend over time.
So my question for you, Sean, is how do you design a retirement plan that builds for longevity, but is flexible enough to handle those surprises that life tends to throw our way?
Yes, this is a planning error that actually most families make. They don't figure out how an early retirement would affect their quality of life and any long-term healthcare needs and legacy desires. Often there are strategies that can be used to mitigate these consequences. The Employee Benefit Institute does some really good work. If you've been to our workshops, you've probably heard me talk about them. Every few years, they do a study. They poll people in their mid-50s, asking when they plan to retire, and the results are always really consistent. 75% of those say that they'll retire after 65. Then they poll the same people in their early 70s, and it ends up that 75% retired before they turned 65. A few of them chose to retire early, but as Ann was saying in the clip, most were forced to retire early because of some unforeseen event. Health issues, layoffs, caregiving for a family member. 2 significant changes happen when an individual retires. they stop contributing to their retirement savings and they start using their retirement savings. And this can have a dramatic effect on the financial position for the family and often causes a significant change in lifestyle. Casey, you asked a really good question. What should people do to be prepared? We have found that those families who proactively create a comprehensive financial plan will be better positioned to navigate obstacles that could cause financial problems like an early retirement. And many times there are opportunities that could improve the situation. Right now, we're working with a lot of Fresno Unified School District employees who are being offered an incentive package to retire early. And these packages have multiple options. With our comprehensive planning process, we can model each option to determine the best strategy for each individual employee and their family. So you want to start the planning process now.
So we know life has a way of throwing us curveballs, Sean, whether that's a sudden health issue or a hiccup in the market, or maybe you have a family emergency of some sort. With all those surprises being a possibility, keeping those in mind, Sean, what kind of financial, let's say, shock absorbers do you suggest building into a retirement plan to help folks weather those storms should they come their way?
Casey, there's so much to think about for retirement, and these things are usually overlooked, and there are many that can change the retirement outlook. But risk tolerance usually is going to be the indicator of what type of strategies we use. It'll be key to stress test those what-if scenarios, meaning we can calculate ahead of time the consequences of those unforeseen events, and then, depending on the family's risk tolerance, determine if they can shoulder that risk, or if we need to implement a strategy to mitigate the effects. So there is no one-size-fits-all. Solutions have to be custom designed for each individual situation.
Life changes, the markets shift, your needs evolve over time, and Sean can help you build a plan that adjusts with you and helps you stay prepared for whatever comes next. 559-847-0039 is how you reach us. We will find you a spot on the calendar to sit down with Sean for your complimentary introductory meeting. 559-847-0039 is that number for you. Again, we are standing by right now to take your call, or if online is better for you, you can always head to MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com, and it's got all the different ways that you can get connected right there. All right, Sean, I want to talk to you about the great wealth transfer because it is well underway, and this is where baby boomers are passing on trillions of dollars in inheritance, but economist Paul Donovan says we're missing something. Take a listen.
Over the next 20 years or so, $84 trillion changes hands. And you immediately assume the kids get it. This is not what is necessarily going to happen. A reasonable chunk of this money, it will go sideways. Stereotypically, in the boomer generation, wealth was disproportionately generated by men, and genetically, their wives will outlive them. So the money goes sideways. So at the moment, women own about and control about 30% of global wealth. I think within the next 20 years, women will start to control a majority of global wealth.
So I want to get your thoughts on this, Sean. What steps do you think women should be taking right now to get ready for inheriting and managing substantial wealth in their retirement?
Yeah, Casey, this is such an important element of retirement planning and a key topic of discussion. When families meet with us for an initial consultation, most people think of estate or legacy planning as kind of a means to pass assets to the kids or causes they're passionate about, or even other family members. But I've learned through the years that really their priority is each other. So it's important to know how each spouse will fare when the other passes, especially if they pass early. And there are many things to consider. And I'll point out that it's not just the women. It can be the men as well. We work with a lot of high-income single women, but also couples where the woman is the main breadwinner. And the spouse that handles the finances isn't always the higher earner. So each situation is really different. But with that said, the majority of the time when I meet with couples, I can tell the man is concerned about the well-being of his wife and wants to make sure she's taken care of in the event something happens to him. And that's often a big motivator for men to lean towards going through our comprehensive financial planning concept. It's not enough to feel like there are sufficient assets. They want that certainty and require clarity in how that'll happen. So in their financial retirement plan, we test how the surviving spouse will fare in the event of an early passing. And often we need to implement some type of strategy that will mitigate any negative financial consequences. And it's important to recognize that single women, and Casey, you know this as well because you've been a single woman, not for long. I know you're engaged. When is the wedding set for?
June 6th.
June 6th, and we're also excited about that. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Knowing you, I have no doubt that's going to be quite a celebration.
It's going to be beautiful. I'm excited. So I wanted to talk to you about this topic, Sean, because I've dealt with this idea of sideways wealth personally. I've shared with you that we lost my dad very tragically and unexpectedly last year, way before his time. And while thankfully my mom was involved in the finances and she wasn't going into it completely blind, it was still a lot for her to take over at the same time that she was grieving the sudden loss of her husband. So I can't imagine what it must be like for a spouse having to go into it not having any clue about what's going on with the finances. And I will say that my mom has made some changes with her plan now that make more sense for her moving forward into her retirement solo because, I mean, things change, right? The future now looks different for her and the finances have to follow that, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I know your story and you know mine, and they're both so very similar for the moms. And yeah, it can make a world of difference in quality of life by getting it right, especially for a female widow. First step, and probably most important, is to come to terms with whether or not you want to manage your finances and financial plan on your own. And realize you don't have to, and that's okay. You have options. Planning is critical. There are several elements that need to be addressed. Being clear in risk tolerance, and because of that more conservative nature, the portfolio has to be aligned with that tolerance. And then longevity. Most of us, man, we're convinced we'll pass early, and there'll be no need for any type of long-term care. But women, on the other hand, they plan to live long and are more realistic about possible long-term care needs. So having that certainty the resources will be there late in life is essential, and planning long-term care strategy that can increase the quality of care options and then allow for a more legacy to be passed on. But understanding what we call the widow's tax, one of the most unfair parts of the tax code, for most widows, they all of a sudden have to start filing as single, which will usually increase taxes significantly, and then especially when those required minimum distributions start. And then strategies used for passing the assets to beneficiaries is key and should be considered sooner than later. Tax consequences can be greater than most families realize. And Casey, one thing we all agree on, we don't want our hard-earned money going to the government.
Absolutely not. You want to have a plan in place, and that is where Sean and his team at Mason Street Wealth Management come in. So give us a call. 559-847-0039 is that phone number. We'll find you the next convenient time on the calendar to get set up for a conversation with Sean. Remember, there's no pressure here, no obligation. It is just a chance for you to chat through your situation with Sean directly, and you guys can figure out together what that best path forward looks like. That number for you again, it's 559-847-0039. We are standing by right now to take your call, so jump on it while we've got these spots available. One more time, 559-847-0039, or head online if that's easier for you. We are at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. You'll click on the Contact Us tab, fill out your info, and we'll be more than happy to reach out to you, and we can get connected that way. All right, Sean, I've got a lesson for you today. I've got an interesting new term I want to teach you about. Do you know what spaving is?
I've not heard of that before.
All right.
Tell me all about it.
Let me break it down for you. So spaving is when you spend more money in the name of trying to save money. So I'm talking about things like a buy one, get one free deal. Like, did you even really need that product in the first place? Doubling the number of items in your online checkout cart so that you can get free shipping. You're spending more than you would have if you just paid for the shipping initially. Is it worth it? And then, sometimes we drive all the way out of the way to save 10 cents on a gallon of gas, and we probably burned more gas getting there in the first place than if we had just paid for the more expensive gas closer to us. So these decisions like this seem smart in the moment, but they can really cost you in the long run. So I wanted to chat with you about this idea of spaving, Sean, and what do you think are some spaving theories that you've seen in retirement planning that can really end up taking a chunk from someone's nest egg in the long run?
Yeah, well, I'm guilty for sure. I don't mind spending $200 on a bottle of wine, but saving a couple bucks at the pump all of a sudden is a big win. I don't know how that happened. I guess
My favorite is I'll sign up for the free trial and then forget to cancel it. And then I've got 17 subscriptions going that I've forgotten to cancel. And did I even really save by doing the free trial in the first place? That's one of my worst ones.
100%. I do it all the time too. I'm with you. I probably have 12 subscriptions that I don't even know
I think I'm subscribed to Netflix like 4 times.
Right. I don't know how that happens, but I guess in some cases, maybe spaving can be even beneficial. If the second pack of paper towels is 50% off, I'm taking it. I know we'll need to buy it later for full price anyway, but it's probably true. Most of the time, we just get sucked in without really thinking it through. So personally, I'm not a big fan of being on a budget. It feels restrictive, and I guess that's the point. But I am focused on what I spend my money on. And I have found through the years when a family actually goes through and figures out where the money is going, it's an eye-opener. And they'll usually find hundreds, if not thousands of dollars leaking through the cracks that do nothing to serve their needs or increase their lifestyle. It always ends up being a really positive activity. If they find $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. And over 20 years with a 7% rate of return, that's going to be an extra $250,000 in savings.
Well, so here's something I've noticed, Sean. Sometimes in our quest to be savvy with our money, we end up making moves that are going to hurt us in the long run. So I wanted to see if you've seen cases where folks, in an effort to save just a little, end up missing out on bigger opportunities or even hurting their retirement plan overall. What are your thoughts on how these short-term saving strategies might end up backfiring over time?
Yeah, and I find this mindset when families meet with us for an initial consultation. I really try and hit home the difference between spending versus investing. Getting this wrong can be costly for sure. Avoiding professional investment management to save on fees when the focus should be on the net. If an advisor can generate a higher rate of return than you could, over and beyond the fee amount, there'll be more dollars in your pocket. And then passing on tax strategies like Roth conversions, for some people, it's hard to stomach paying higher taxes in the current year, even if it means saving 10 times that amount. And then a lot of us suffering from FOMO, the fear of missing out on the market's high rate of return, it can seem the same as spending. Look, if we don't earn it, we don't have it. And if we spend it, we don't have it. So this can cause taking on more risk than necessary, which can have a detrimental effect on the plan, especially during volatile market conditions. These are all emotional perspectives, and although the way we feel is an important part of retirement planning, we have to know the facts in order to have a relevant feeling. And so this is why comprehensive financial planning is so important. Most often, having clarity in the numbers will change the way individuals feel, and then being able to see the big picture helps with making decisions with less emotion. So I want to encourage our listeners to get your own individual financial planning assessment. And if you're one of our 5 callers, we'll provide this with no charge because it's that important. So you want to call right now, 559-847-0039. Our team will find a good time for you to come into the office or meet by Zoom, and we'll provide you with your own individual financial planning assessment, tax strategies, estate planning, these cash flow concepts we've been discussing, all these elements you have to be considering.
Give us a call now at 559-847-0039. We will find you that next convenient time on the calendar to get you scheduled for that initial 15-minute consultation with just you and Sean. No pressure. Just a chance for you guys to chat through your situation, to see where you're at on your retirement journey, and then you guys can find a time to sit down here in his office. He's right here in Fresno. So again, our phone number, 559-847-0039, or visit us at masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll click on the Contact Us tab. Just plug in your info, and we'll be happy to reach out to you. 559-847-0039 or masonstreetretirementinsights.com. If you're planning to rent a car for any of your holiday travel, You need to listen to this. Some customers who have rented from Hertz lately are not happy. The company has installed AI scanners at about a dozen U.S. airports with plans to expand to 100 by the end of the year in just a few weeks. And what are they looking for? Well, even the tiniest damage to the vehicle that might not be noticeable at first glance. And renter Adam Foley talked to CBS News recently about this.
As soon as we landed back in San Antonio on our flight, I started getting automated messages immediately saying that there were damages found in the vehicle and that I owed $80 for 2 small different dents and then $190 for a processing fee, and so a total of $350 for what are pretty negligible events that I didn't even detect.
So that's kind of crazy. And this guy was actually issued a refund after CBS approached Hertz for this story. But I heard this, Sean. I was thinking about it from a retirement perspective, and your retirement plan could also have some dings in the form of fees that you may not detect that you're even paying. So when you work with new clients, Sean, can you tell people what they're actually paying when it comes to fees in their plans and their accounts?
Yeah, for sure. And wow, I haven't heard that before. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see lots of court battles coming. The problem is when those costs are smaller, it's not worth fighting. So we just pay it, even if it's not justified.
Mm-hmm.
But Casey, you bring up a really good point, and it comes up all the time. In fact, most people don't know how much they're paying in fees. And maybe the advisor didn't explain, or sometimes people just don't remember the details. And we're all probably guilty of not reading the documents thoroughly. I do think it's the obligation of the advisor to be clear in cost, especially as a fiduciary firm. We provide the families we work for with a fee document that lines out each item. It's also important they know the reason for the fee, because costs are only a concern when there's lack of value. But to answer your question, yes, we can help families identify the fees they're paying. We run a fee filter on their portfolio as part of their individual financial planning assessment.
I mean, these fees really are kind of like scratches on your car. You don't notice them until maybe somebody points them out, and then that's all you can think about, and you're wondering how much they'll cost you. And if you're paying more in fees, then you realize that's just money leaking out of your retirement tank in the long run. So, Sean, if somebody takes a closer look, discovers they've been paying higher fees than they thought, what can they actually do to fix that without throwing off their long-term strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first step, and probably most important, is to come to terms with what the expectations are and why. Often the mindset needs to be addressed, and then those expectations need to be adjusted. But there are some fees that might be negotiable, those imposed by the advisory firm for one. Others are set and difficult to even address. Custodial fees are usually set in stone. Third-party investment managers are rarely available for fee discussions. You know, it might boil down to an individual finding the fees are not worth the value and they need to make a management or investment option change. I'd encourage them to get clarity on what they're planning on moving to. You know, fee structure, growth expectations, especially liquidity and timeframe commitments. So our comprehensive financial process will help you determine the income strategy that will best serve your expectations. So I encourage you to give us a call and we can give you some good ideas. If you've been wondering about which direction to go, just come in and have a discussion. We're going to help you figure that out.
It all starts with that initial 15-minute conversation with just you and Sean. You can talk on the phone, you can meet on Zoom, you can explain to him what questions you have, and then he can share with you information about how he and his team might be able to help you. So let's put a time on the calendar for your initial 15-minute conversation with Sean. This is no fee, no obligation, with somebody who knows the retirement landscape locally. Sean's right here in Fresno, and he is ready to share with you some information and get some ideas on how he and the team might be able to help you. So again, our phone number, it's 559-847-0039. If you are 5 to 10 years from retirement, this is where you're really going to feel the benefits of the kind of planning Sean and his team do really take effect for you. So let's start the conversation with Sean. 559-847-0039 is the number to dial right now. We've got our Mason Street teammates standing by off the air, ready to answer your call and help you put that time on the calendar. You can also always go to masonstreetretirementinsights.com. You'll click on the Contact Us tab, and you can begin that way as well. Or just call us right now. I think that's easier. Let's put a time on the calendar. 559-847-0039. 559-847-0039. All right, Sean, Dave Ramsey, that guy, he is stirring up another debate. He says you should take your Social Security at 62, even if you're working, as long as you have the discipline to invest it wisely. So wanted to see what you think of that, Sean. Do you find that most of the people who come to you have the knowledge and the discipline to do that?
Well, that would be considered controversial for sure, but it could be the right strategy for some. Higher risk investments would be needed to make that work, especially for Social Security benefits paid before full retirement age. If you're still working, earned income will reduce the Social Security benefit by $1 for every $2 earned, over $23,000 per year. So for most of my clients, that would completely eliminate the Social Security paycheck, so there would be nothing to invest. People come into my office often with questions and confusion about what they hear on the radio from the Ramseys and the Ormans of the world. We have to be mindful of the perspective we take when listening to them. There's rarely a one-size-fits-all approach. Everyone has a different situation, and specific circumstances will change the results of each strategy. And Casey, you bring up a good point. Not only do we have to determine if a strategy is good for our individual circumstances, but we also have to be honest with ourselves. Do we have the discipline to implement and then manage it? Especially with Social Security, many people don't realize that Social Security is one of our most valuable resources. The amount of spendable lifetime income we receive from our Social Security benefits can change significantly based on the strategy.
You know, when folks start thinking seriously about retirement, it's not just about how much you've saved. There are so many moving parts to consider. And with taxes always changing, you got the ups and downs of the market. You got the fact that people are living longer now than ever. It can feel like there's a lot more to juggle. So, Sean, how do all these factors, taxes, market volatility, and the potential for a longer lifespan, how does that change the way that the math works when someone's planning for retirement?
Well, that's such a great example of how our individual circumstances should determine the strategies we employ. Taxes being at least short-term more predictable, and market volatility being less predictable, and then lifespan being a function of probability. These are all factors that completely affect the results of any strategy, and why stress testing all the relevant scenarios is critical to reach favorable outcomes.
There are clearly a lot of factors to consider here. And that's where I think incorporating the help of a professional sooner rather than later is going to make all the difference for you. So let Sean be your second set of eyes. Let him help you understand where you stand and what adjustments might make sense for whatever your personal situation may be. This is what an introductory assessment with him is all about. It's a complimentary consultation to help you build a plan that's balanced, that's flexible, that is built to last. So give us a call, 559-847-0039. We will find you the next convenient time on Sean's calendar, 559-847-0039. We have got our Mason Street teammates standing by at the office right now to help you out. Or you can always visit us at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com, and we will get connected that way. All right, Sean, you know I love to end the show with a giggle when I can. And at age 71, SNL alum Rich Hall is still doing stand-up comedy, and he claims that he can explain the plot of any Tom Cruise movie in less than 18 seconds.
He's a cocktail maker. He's a pretty good cocktail maker, too. Till he has a crisis of confidence and can't make cocktails anymore. Then he meets a good-looking woman who talks him into being a better cocktail maker. A riveting piece of cinema that was. Then he's a race car driver. Pretty good race car driver, too. Till he has a crisis of confidence, can't race cars anymore. Then he meets a good-looking woman who talks him into being a better race car driver. Then he's a jet pilot. So you're starting to see a pattern emerge here. Pretty good jet pilot? Yes, he was. Till he had a crisis of confidence, couldn't fly jets anymore. Then I believe he met a good-looking woman who talked him into being a better jet pilot. Could be a Scrabble player for all I care.
So clearly, movies kind of follow a predictable script. But Sean, as we know, retirement, it is not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal, like a Tom Cruise movie, apparently. So can you talk to us about how you help customize a plan that's unique for your clients?
That was really funny. It's so true, isn't it? I mean, if you look back at all the Tom Cruise movies, but what a brand they built.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're still going to tune in. We know what's going to happen, but we're still going to tune in.
Yeah, because they do a great job and it's entertaining. But, getting to your question, Casey, there's no one size fits all. And that's what makes it a bit complicated at sometimes. We all have similarities in our scenarios. And then at the same time, our scenarios are so unique. Lifestyle, goals, we have to align the lifestyle and goals with our resources. And really, that's what financial planning is all about. And so I want to encourage our listeners to come in and have a discussion, because we'll walk through those different scenarios that they might be experiencing and look at what those goals are and what they're trying to accomplish. And, maybe we'll find some recommendations that make sense for you.
Getting your plan set in place all starts with that initial introductory conversation with just you and Sean. You can explain to him what questions you have about retirement, what your concerns are, and then he can share with you how he and the team may be able to help. So let's go ahead and put a time on the calendar for your complimentary retirement planning assessment. This is a no-fee, no obligation initial conversation with somebody who knows this retirement landscape locally. Sean's right here in Fresno. So again, that number to do it, it's 559-847-0039. If you are 5 to 10 years from retirement, this is where you're going to feel the benefits of the kind of planning that Sean and his team do really take effect for you. So I encourage you not to wait any longer. Let's start the conversation. 559-847-0039 is that number to dial right now. We've got our teammates standing by off the air, ready to take your call and help you set that time on the calendar. You can also always visit us at MasonStreetRetirementInsights.com. Click on the Contact Us tab to begin that way as well, or just call us right now. Let's put that time on the calendar. 559-847-0039. Sean, thank you so much. We appreciate your insight as always, and we will be back next week, same time, same place, to chat more retirement strategy. But until then, Sean, my friend, I am handing it over to you to take us out.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's always good to hang out with you, Casey, and I appreciate all of our listeners tuning in. And keep coming back. We care so much about your success, and that's why we do this. And we're going to continue to bring you information that's just going to help you put yourself in a better position. So everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
Mason Street Wealth Management, MSWM, is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by MSWM on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Motivate Investments. Registration is not an endorsement by securities regulators. Investment advisory services are offered through Motivate Investments, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. The information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities, offered through Sean A. Mason, California, insurance license number 0B54860. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Motivate Investments. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. MSWM is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if MSWM is licensed in your state, please call 559-892-0002.
There was a time when the answer was
$1 million.
$1 million. $1
million. $1 million.
$1 million.
the question, how much is a lot of money? Think about this. During the 80s, there were about 500,000 millionaires in the U.S. Today, there are over 18.6 million. There are millions of millionaires. The point is this. If you've saved $1 million for retirement, congratulations. But even if you haven't, that's your fortune. Whether you carry that label of middle-class millionaire or not, Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management can show you how to take those hard-earned dollars and create years of retirement happiness. When you do the math on your retirement, it's more about the number you get per month than the amount you've saved. Call Sean Mason at Mason Street Wealth Management for your complimentary retirement review. 559-847-0039. That's 559-847-0039 or online at MasonStreetWealthManagement.com. Want to retire like a millionaire? Call Mason Street Wealth Management today.
Think retirement planning has to be boring? Think again. Tune in to Sean Mason every Saturday for Mason Street Retirement. It's real talk about your money without the jargon. Join Sean on Saturdays at 3, right here on News Talk 580 KMJ.